just me, or does it seem like I'm starting to post on my channel a little bit frequently? A little bit more frequently? Yeah, I know. A scary concept, isn't it? Anyway, what's good on the internet? What's good in life? The name's Akeem Balaam. Once again, hopefully everybody out there is doing okay. Hopefully life in 2025 is giving you all of the good and none of the bad. So, I know that most of the content that I have been posting here ever since I started getting back on YouTube, for those that don't know, I used to have a previous YouTube channel that I just can't seem to get in. But I used to have a previous YouTube channel, and most of the content there was also sports related, a little bit radio related as well. And one of the things that I said that I wanted to do when I came back here on these YouTubes is that I wanted to expand my horizons past sports. And I feel like this is kind of a good way to do that. And also kind of going into my previous bag when I would also post some radio content as well. So I've been trying to keep my videos at around like 10 minutes, even though I know my previous video that I did when I was talking about NCAA tournaments, I know it kind of went up to like 16 minutes. So I'm going to try to keep this around 10 just because that's just something I've been trying to do a bit more with my videos. But apparently there has been some radio news out of Minnesota. So apparently longtime classic rocker KQRS, also known as KQ92, is going in a different direction with their station. And it seems that they have decided to go in a bit more of a, instead of being more centric around, I guess, 70s and 80s, they're going more in a direction, more of a modern type of classic rock direction where it's more centered around the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. And that, believe it or not, has caused quite a stir among Minnesota radio listeners because they've become used to KQ92 as a classic rocker, and some are not exactly liking this decision to go into an entirely new direction with their station. So apparently the station put out a statement on their various social media platforms, essentially explaining why they did this, what the rationale was behind this change. And really, when you think about it, this is something that has probably been in the works for a while. But really, when you think about it, this is just the overall direction of radio. I mean, this isn't just a KQ92 thing. This is something that older leaning formats, whether it's the more oldies formats, the classic hits formats, or the classic rock formats, this is something that is going on across the board. When you think about where music appears to be going, this is something that was predictable. This was something that was really predictable with a lot of older leaning stations. Even R&B stations, for the most part, have been slowly but surely seemingly phasing out a lot of 60s and 70s, and they've been catering more towards a younger crowd, I guess you could say, with a lot more 90s and a lot more 2000s. A lot of adult R&B stations have been playing a lot more hip hop from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, whatsoever. So this is something that has really been going on across the board. So it really isn't all that much of a surprise that KQ92 would join the crowd, I guess you could say, and start going in more of a younger direction with their classic rock presentation. Because when you think about it, this is the year 2025. I know it's a situation where some people say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But change really is the spice of life. And change really is the spice of radio. And when you think about it, you can really classify a lot of 2000s rock, especially early 2000s rock. A lot of that can be classified as classic rock now. Like, we know that at this point, a lot of the alternative, a lot of the grunge, a lot of the ska, a lot of the punk from the 90s, a lot of that in 2025 can definitely be classified as classic rock. And the same sort of applies to what we're seeing out of from the early 2000s. So this is something that if you listen to a lot of classic rock stations nowadays, this is something that is going on across the board. It's no surprise. It's a natural evolution of the format. It's no different, like I said, with classic hit stations. I mean, for such a long time, classic hit stations have been defined as 60s, 70s, and 80s. But a lot of radio consultants and a lot of radio companies are looking at this and they're thinking, you know what? A lot of the audience that probably listened to a lot of 60s is either dying out, or more importantly, for a lot of radio companies, they're out of the target demographic for advertisers. So that's why a lot of that music isn't getting played on terrestrial radio anymore. So it's really a natural evolution. It's really one of those situations where that's why on a lot of stations that are still considered to be classic hit stations that used to play the 60s, a lot of them are now playing the 90s. So overall, it's really more so than anything else, just a natural evolution of stations like KQ92. And KQ92 has apparently decided to go in that same direction. Now, it will be interesting to see if there are other radio stations in the Twin Cities that decide to counter this move from KQ92, because usually when we see a move that creates quite an upstir, usually there will be other radio stations that will go ahead and they may decide to respond in kind. Maybe some of that music that used to be mainstays on KQ92, maybe that starts getting played on other radio stations. So I think that is certainly something to see and certainly something to look out for as the coming months and as the coming weeks happen to ensue. So we will see if that is indeed the case. But there is another story that I also think is relevant to this change. KQ92 is under the Cumulus umbrella, and there have been lots of rumors as of late concerning a possible merger between Cumulus and Odyssey. So anything happening with a Cumulus station or an Odyssey station, like KQ92 is. KQ92 is Cumulus, and I also believe, does Odyssey have stations in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, St. Paul? I believe they do. I gotta go back and look that up, but I believe they do indeed have a presence in the Twin Cities. I believe they do definitely with WCCO, as well as some sister stations as well, maybe 1029. But with anything associated with either a Cumulus station or an Odyssey station, I imagine that is going to be part of the conversation. That is going to be part of the proverbial Monday morning quarterbacking, if you will, following either a format change or a shift in format like what we are seeing with KQ92. So I just wanted to come on here. I feel like this was something that was kind of getting a little bit of attention because we see these types of format shifts all the time. But this one really appears to have taken on a life of its own, I guess you could say, in the radio industry because of the fact that it's KQ92, because of the fact that it's a major market classic rocker that has now gone in a direction where they're now starting to skew younger, starting to skew more towards the adult alternative. And I also believe they also said in that statement that one of the things that they also wanted to do is that they wanted to emphasize more Minnesota artists. And that's something that always is going to get a thumbs up from me. Anytime a radio station puts emphasis on artists from their local area, from their locality, from their city, from their state, that's always going to be something that's going to get a thumbs up from yours truly, because I feel like to a certain extent, because of the fact that radio has become so corporate and has become so homogenized, anytime we have a station deciding, okay, we're going to honor those legends from the past as well as those up and comers from our area, that is always going to be something that is always going to get a thumbs up for me. You can never go wrong prioritizing live and local, whether it's with personalities and especially with music. More radio stations around the country need to take notes. So rate, comment, react, reply, add, and subscribe. I just wanted to get on here and just kind of share my 2 cents about this move, this shift in format with KQ92 that apparently has a lot of the land at 10,000 lakes, definitely a talkin'. So until next time, I am signing off. This is Akeem. See you on the internet someplace.